Are you being a consultant or are you being someone else? What is a consultant, and does identity play a massive part in outcomes for a consultant? Welcome to your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson and this is episode number 28. And today we're going to be talking about identity and identity in regards to the consultant. And the question is, are you being a consultant or are you being someone else? What is a consultant, and does identity play a massive part in outcomes for a consultant? Well, I think it does. And I think identity and understanding the role that you play as a consulting professional goes a massively long way for you to get the outcomes that people ideally are expecting, but also that you're expecting of yourself. Now, we've got all sorts of consultants. There are memes about consultants, and not understanding what they do. There's what does a consultant do? Well, I don't know. They attend meetings all day. They seem to talk to people. They ask a lot of questions. They quote large numbers of dollars, but we don't really know what they do. Yet I heard a quite a good definition recently, which is that it's a brain for hire. Do you need a brain for hire? Yes. Well, I need a consultant. And so when someone's hiring that concept, how are you being that brain in action? What is the identity of that person coming into that situation? Are you coming in as the identity that you first started your profession with? So you might be an engineer or an accountant, or you might be a project manager, or you might even be a designer, right? There's all sorts of ways that people come to consulting. And often they stay with that identity in their heads, and therefore they're bringing design to consulting, or they're bringing engineering thoughts and experience to consulting. Yet, if they're doing that, they're missing the opportunity of actually bringing the full consultant to the picture. There's a kind of a yes and on the concept of, can you be a consulting engineer? Absolutely, but you're a consulting engineer. If you want to be a pure consultant, how do you go about describing that? And so I've got a little task for you. There's 6 steps I like to look at around defining or actualizing an entity. Now, I use a die or a dice. No, it's dice is 2, but a die is 1, right? So it's a 6-sided die to represent the sort of 3D, the three-dimensional aspect of what it is to actualize any entity or archetype, or in the end of the day, identity. So if we want to look at our archetype in particular, this is something that I used to use back in the 90s a hell of a lot, moved away from, made overcomplicated, got back and simplified it. Actually found it was an amazing way to actually to find a path to creating amazing brand, but not just brand, outcomes, right? Outcomes, because who we are and what we do with that really are the things that equal what we have in this world. And there's the old formula, be do have. Right? So who are you being, and what are you doing, and how do we actually actualize that? And do we see if there are any gaps? Are there gaps in our understanding of what we could be doing and how we could be doing things better? So, number 1, let's look at environment. That's the first thing when it comes to actualization. In fact, I'll rattle them all off really fast and then we'll come back to them. So there's environment, there are values, there are beliefs, there are strategies, there are actions, and finally there is the identity itself. And really this is the actualization of any archetype. Archetypes are an interesting thing. They come off the back of a psychologist who decided that his mentor cared too much about sex when it came to psychology, and moved away from Freud. And the person who moved away from Freud was, of course, Carl Jung. And Carl Jung really looked at archetypal work when it came to behavior and certainly to his branch of psychology. That leads into all these archetypes, these different forms, where there's things like the sage, there is things like the magician or the wizard. There are entities or archetypes like the warrior and the healer and the innocent. There are all these different archetypes. And all they are is just ways of defining something. And I think it's useful to understand them, because then you can go, this thing acts like this thing, therefore is that thing. Whereas if you are saying you're a consultant but not acting like a consultant, are you a consultant? And while this does sound a little bit theoretical, at the end of the day, there's real action behind these words, so you can really start to see where your gaps and your misalignments are in the activities that you're doing. So let's have a look at it. We've got environment, values, beliefs, strategies, actions, and then identity. Environment number one is what is the environment of the archetype? What is the environment, in this case, of the consultant? Well, for most of us, actually, I'll let you answer the question. Where is the consultant doing their work? And I won't answer it. I won't answer the question at all. I'd love you to put it into the comments below, wherever you see this, or you can send me a message at russell@russellpearson.com. If you don't know how to spell that, look it up. The answers will actually reveal a lot to you. What is the place? What is the environment of the consultant? So that's number one. Number two is, what are the values of the consultant? What does the consultant value? Now, I want to put a little condition on the values, because I think this is a really useful way to look at values in action. There are all sorts of people using values like integrity and honesty, and they don't cut the mustard. They don't meet the benchmark of what is a value in my world. A value needs to be an ing or an In other words, a doing thing or a being thing. So you can't be an integrity and be doing integrity ing. You can't be an honesty or an honesty ing, right? But you can be communication. You can be a communicator, and you can be communicating, right? Absolutely. So communication absolutely hits the mark when it comes to the value. So achievement, all right, that's another great one. So you can be an achiever and you can be achieving. Therefore, it equals what it needs to be. Teamwork, it's a little bit of a cut phrase. There's two different parts of it. You can be a team worker, and I think you can be team working. So certainly work can be a value. But more so, if you want to go above that, what's the purpose of that? Well, it's contribution. And then contribution potentially for achievement. But like contribution, yes, you can have contribution as a value. Contributor, right? So it's a really useful distinction. And why I make that distinction is because the difference between what is a value in that space, which is something that you can action and become, if it's not that, then it falls into the category of belief, which is the one step down. So you can absolutely have a belief about integrity and the need for integrity. You can have a belief about honesty and the need for honesty, right? So there are certain things that a consultant believes, but let's backtrack. Values. What are the things that the consultant values? It'd be interesting to see what you say as a consultant as to what someone else might say. What are your values, ing and of the consultant? Stepping down one, we'll go to beliefs. What are the things that you need to believe? For instance, the belief around, I believe I will be able to find a way. There is a way forward. Could potentially be one of the beliefs of the consultant. But what is it for you? What is it, the beliefs that you need to have as a consultant? Stepping down from that, what are the strategies that you would use? What are the strategies of a consultant? Now, it's interesting to go as a third party and say these are the things of a consultant as an archetypal entity onto itself, and then go and do it for yourself and say, what are my beliefs, what are my values, what are my strategies, right? And see where the gaps are. You can actually see where any misalignments are, and then decide, well, number one, do I want to be a consultant, or do I want to be a guide, or do I want to be a coach, or do I want to be something else? But you can start really using archetypes to see the differences in things. And I'll show you how you can use this in just a moment. So you've got strategies. What are the strategies of the consultant or of you? Then stepping down from that, what are the actions that come from those strategies? What are the things that the consultant does? And then it lands into entity, which is the final one. Identity. What is the identity that describes all of those things? So is it consultant? So if it's consultant, does environment, do values, do beliefs, do strategies and actions all match that identity, or is there a misalignment? Or can you actually hide the identity tag and just have a look at the other things and say, what is that? No, I've done it with other people and I've gone, in actual fact, you seem to be a strategist. In fact, you're an educational strategist. And they've gone, wow, I hadn't really thought about myself that way, but you're 100% right. And what that did, it really gave them ownership about who they were, what they were doing, and who they were becoming. And it enabled them to get deeper and actually care much more about the development of themselves in those spaces. But what it's really useful for, especially in coaching and things like that, is to actually see where somebody is. What's their current environment? What's their current values, beliefs? What are the strategies they're using? What are the actions? Who would that person be? Now, they're saying they want to be this other person. What are the examples of that? Where are the gaps between these two? How do I actually help them transition from one identity to another potentially? Right. So these are all options. These are just tools that you can potentially use. Now, the other cool part of it is that you can say, all right, well, I'm looking at a pathway for let's say, an organization we're working for, and we want to say this person is currently the technician. We're going to help them move out of technician to manager, and then we're going to have them move out of manager to owner. What is the pathway for that person? What is the different environments, the different values, the different beliefs and strategies and actions? What do they look like on that pathway? Now, what's cool is that if you have an identity, and it's a nice locked-in identity, and they're very, very clear on each of those 6 components, and then you change one of those components, it's interesting to watch the identity change, right? And so you can take like a very, very simple exercise we've got someone locked into an identity and it's not serving them. We want to help them move to another place. We've actualized what that other place might look like. Let's take them out of the environment that confirms the first identity and actually move it into the second. Suddenly you start seeing some things shift. Their actions start to shift. Their strategies start to shift, and it works back up to their beliefs. And then with the right amount of work, the values will change, and therefore they will start to embody this new identity. So there's all sorts of games and things that you can play to help and guide people on the path that they need to take as a consultant. But my question for you is, are you a consultant? Or are you still identifying yourself as the technician that you were when you first got your professional expertise? My name's Russell Pearson. I would love to hear from you, which you can actually send me any information you've got, whether it be questions, thoughts, comments, to russell@russellpearson.com. It's SSLL, the way Russell should be spelt. I'd love to also get comments. If there's people watching this on YouTube, I'd love you to leave comments and actually let me know what you thought. Obviously, subscribe to this session, whether you're watching it on YouTube or whether you're actually listening to it on a podcast. I just want to hear from you. I want to understand whether this is helpful, whether these thought experiments like today are useful, whether these tactical things that I actually give you each week are of help. I'd love to hear. I mean, there's certainly a growing audience, which is fantastic. Now I'd love to actually start speaking to you. We're going to be coming up with some great interviews soon. I've started reaching out to some absolute experts that are going to help you as a consultant in your practice and in the building of your business and professionalism. And so start to look out for some of those that are coming up in the very near future. And until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks for watching the episode. If you'd like to get more episodes, click on the next video and you can watch it right here.